You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast. We rank every story from A to Z.
I'm Adam.
And I'm the werewolf that's inhabiting Zach's body, also calling himself Zach at this point.
Oh, that's nice.
Adam.
Yeah. Hi, how you doing?
I'm fine. I'm in a different hotel, not by a Topgolf this time.
Okay, so no golf balls flying through your window. That's good to know.
No. There's a Dave & Buster's, though, like right over there.
Okay.
So I could do that, and then I am not. I'm just sitting in my hotel room watching King of the Hill because
Zach,
this is the exciting thing in my life.
I did see an advertisement for Dave & Buster's that involved a child in like a harness of some kind where they get dropped down like a crane in a crane like arcade machine. And the kid gets to pick up the stuffed animal themselves. So I think you need to get down there and get in that harness is what I'm saying.
Adam, that seems like an adventure, but an adventure in pretty poor taste. Luckily,
good segue.
Luckily, this week we have someone who's an expert in that. You'll know him from the X-Men Monday column. You'll know him from like 400 episodes ago on this show or something like that. It's Chris Hassan. Hey, Chris.
Hello. I thought you were going to segue to like you found me in the claw machine at Dave & Buster's.
No. I don't think anyone is legally allowed to get stuck in the claw machine at Dave & Buster's.
Oh my God. Poor Chris is stuck in the claw machine at Dave & Buster's.
Thank God Zach broke me out. Hi, Adam and Werewolf Zach. I have a question. So
yeah.
Do we pretend like I know you, Zach, or do I have to get to know the new Zach?
No, in the fiction, the werewolf has subsumed all of my memories and all.
This is like a Gene Madeline Pryor thing. We're just
yes,
whatever
exactly.
The story needs.
There's been the Shi'ar memory matrix or whatever crush that happened in between episodes for folks who are paying attention to the lore of the things we talk about at the start of the podcast before we talk about things that are going on in the world, like I don't know, the 300th edition of X-Men Monday that as this goes live will be released. Like
it's online right now.
Monday.
This
Monday.
If you've got two tabs open on your browser, you could be going back and forth. Treat this as the commentary.
Yeah, congratulations, Chris.
Thank you.
This is so like 6 years of doing this column for you. So
now I'm depressed. That's 6 years of my life gone.
We're about to hit 400 episodes, so we feel your pain.
What episode? What is this? Which one are we on?
397.
Wow.
We're getting
Adam
real
keeps
close.
Track. I don't.
Yeah. He lies.
Well,
it's on the spreadsheet.
No, because specifically I used to put episode numbers in all of the episode titles for this, and I stopped that like 3 or 4 years ago. So then I stopped paying attention until we get close to a big number and you remind me.
Yeah. So, but X-Men Monday always has the number and then has who the guests are.
It has to have the number because the fans, they like the legacy numbers.
Fans love a legacy
They
number.
gotta put it, they board and bag it. Isn't it interesting that X-Men Monday has more editions than Uncanny X-Men has issues? What are we on, like 19, 13, whatever for Uncanny?
Well, now they put out a recent thing for this week's issue of Jed McKay's X-Men that had a legacy number on it that made no sense. I was trying to figure that.
What is it? Because Adam, you know how mad I am about legacy numbers.
Well, it seemed to discount the Hickman and Duggan adjective lists.
Because they were stupid, and here's what happened.
But it still didn't add up, Zach. It didn't add up.
Of course it didn't add up. It'll never add up. It's insane because adjectiveless X-Men, as you know, Adam, volume 1 of that, it became Uncanny X-Men around like the 120s, somewhere around there. The Indica changed it like 142, so the official name, that doesn't matter. They relaunched volume 2. That goes for 113 issues. They make it new X-Men. keep the numbering going, and then that book ends, and then they launch a different new X-Men and a different adjectiveless X-Men. And then that adjectiveless X-Men becomes X-Men Legacy, and that new X-Men becomes Young X-Men or whatever. Who cares about those kids? And then, I'm sorry, Connor has emboldened me now that someone else also does not care about those kids, who's more popular. It makes me feel okay saying that and not getting yelled at by people on Twitter. But then X-Men Legacy hit 300 and it goes away. At the same time, they had, I think, 2 other adjectiveless X-Men that were going on concurrently with X-Men Legacy. And then all of that, but Uncanny had pure pristine numbering until Matthew Rosenberg comes in and does War of the Realms tie-ins that have like weird numbering to them. And I'm like, whatever, we can get over that. We can move on. And then they accidentally put it on the first issue of Hickman's with the Uncanny Legacy numbering. And Hickman goes online and says, no, that's wrong. They screwed up. And no one else listened to him.
That's pretty much what happened. And then we ended up with a 700, and God knows what's going on now. Chris, you didn't need to hear all that. You know all this.
Chris, tell me about the legacy numbering of X-Men Monday.
I feel like I'm on a kind of nerdy X-Men podcast. I might be on the wrong X-Men podcast.
Yeah, right.
It's like, how do you tie in, like, do you count this as a separate running thing as whatever the CBR version of this was from like 20 years ago was?
Yeah, it's actually, I don't. And do you know how long that ran? What was that, Expositions or something?
With,
something like
Phoenicia, right? That went for a while.
Because Panic started X-Men Monday on Twitter, started sharing things. That was in the before times.
Yeah, so Expositions was a different thing, but it's basically the same kind of thing. I like to think that we have outpaced whatever they reached. I don't think they had numbers. So yeah, that's a victory.
You're laughing at
him. I'm laughing at him. But no, I think the history of X-Men Monday is very strange, and it's I think about this quite often because sometimes I think for a while it was like, because Jordan obviously took it over from Mark. He like created it, like the history of X-Men Monday. I feel like Mark doesn't even know this column exists, but I always think about like, I should do an interview with him someday and like talk about it.
I tell you what, I would love to talk to Mark about a couple of things. I would love to know some history on some.
So he came up with X-Men Monday, and I don't know. I would love to know, like, where did that come from? Was it just X-Men and Monday? But like Jordan then took over and said, I want to do X-Men Monday, and he came to AiPT, and then because we had done Uncanny X Month, which you guys were both part of too. That was way back.
Was that the one where I said nice things about Twitter? There's not a lot of things that are published of mine that I actively regret. Yeah. That's the one that I'm like, I said some. Between that and starting the hashtag X spoilers, I set some things in motion.
You've got a bad legacy,
bro. You know it.
It's a different time.
Yeah, it's but anyway, so Jordan, came to it, he started doing it, but Jordan just kind of like took that name and put it in play. And now obviously Jordan is not in the X office. And I think for a while, I was logically thinking like, oh, could they just take this away? Does this fall apart? But I think Tom Brevoort was just like, I remember someone on Twitter tweeted Tom and they were like, will X-Men Monday continue? And first of all, he's probably like, what the hell is X-Men Monday? But he replied to the person,
what the hell are the X-Men?
He replied saying, I assume it would continue as it is. And I just love that, like, this random fan is deciding, like, the fate of the column post Jordan. So at this point, like, I don't know. Like, do I own the rights to X-Men Monday? I don't know. Who knows?
I feel like it's become communal property at this point.
Okay. Never mind.
I feel like it is. You have been doing a column for quite some time, and that's your column, and it's a two-way street. It's not just interview with people. It is interview with people, and also you are the interviewer, and you bring your own perspective and your own unique thing to it. And what I think is interesting is, especially as we're like framing out this episode of the podcast, to look at how far things have come. Like, what was going on when you started the column to, 300 editions later, kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I think it's funny because Adam, you kind of told me that we talked about some stuff. And so I went back and looked at the first one. and there was no theme. It was just like a mishmash of random X-Fan questions. And Zach, you were in there. I forget what you asked about.
Oh, that sounds about right.
But it was Zach was at the beginning of it all. But yeah, it was like talking about like Polaris and Alex's degrees, their PhDs, and then like Madrox and Layla Miller. It's just like a random grab bag of stuff. And then Jordan was talking about like Baconators. Like, so it was it's amazing we made it this far. But yeah, and then over time it kind of started to have more themes, and then went beyond Jordan as well. And I think the behind the scenes there is, I remember like around 10 or 11, Jordan emailed me and he's like, I think we need to like come up with some new ideas for this, because I think he was getting tired of answering the same, like, where is Vulcan? Where is Havoc? You know, where is
this is exactly that. I love it because that's the exact like story line that our podcast went through, where the first chunk of episodes we were like, we're just gonna do grab bag X-Men stuff. We're like, wait, no,
it's not gonna work.
Things that works if you have a concept around it.
Well, and speaking of that, the way that we really kind of now crowdsource the ideas is through the Patreon. But you know, the other big thing that happens with X-Men Monday is you take a lot of reader questions, Chris. So
and God bless you for that.
Yeah, and you're sort of the editor behind the scenes of like which questions are actually going to get asked. You know, what are your do's and don'ts for that, and how has that changed over the years?
That's a great question, because I feel like Jordan had very specific things that he could and wanted to talk about, and I think that was very much in contrast with what the fans wanted to talk about at different times. And I think this was very heightened during the Krakoan era, and I think that, I mean, you look back, and I think you guys would agree, like, I think we're all kind of part of something that was really special. And in the fandom, and obviously you had a podcast and I did the column, but you also had CXF, and like there was this, you had those great articles and analyses, and like it was just an amazing time to be part of the X-Men, and for all of us like living through that. And we also like knew these creators too and had opportunities to engage with them. It was very much, but I also think there was kind of a toxic side to that, and I don't know if you guys would agree with that as well, but
it got too comfortable.
Yeah, got a little toxic and sour, I think, towards the fall of X, where there was so much intensity and passion for the Krakoan era and analysis that when it was going away, I think there was kind of a reaction to that. And that, I think, really came out in the Sinister Secrets I did with Jordan, where he went through all like the unresolved plot lines. And I think that, you know, Jordan was just like, yeah, we had no idea. We had no plan for this or that. But the fan reaction to that, like people who were like following the column, I think they really soured, because they're like, but I thought this meant something, this key and this. And it's like, you kind of learn a lesson of like, don't get so invested in, like, you can have your fun and you can like analyze, but
I can't speak for Adam, but it's one thing that I've gotten to appreciate a lot more the longer I've gotten to do this podcast, talk to people behind the scenes, both on record and off. One, this is people's jobs, and I swear if I had someone doing a podcast about my performance on my job every week, I would lose it. That's an insane thing to do. The other side of it is that this is a creative endeavor, and sometimes when you are doing something, you can go in and say, hey, I like this idea. I don't know exactly where it's going, but I like it so much in concept right now that we're going to throw this in and see where things flower. That's part of the creative process. And then sometimes the creative process gets turned around by things completely out of anybody's control, and that's just life. And these things happen. And at the end of the day, these are just stories. They're just stories, and they can be important to you. But I'd say more important should be the actual real life people in their lives.
And people that talented people who care and mean well. And anyone who's ever listened to Jordan on your show or like read Jordan's answers, he's such a nice guy. And he loves comics and he means so well. And all of it is, it's like Jordan coming right against people who are like, but I have thoughts about Hellion, and they are in contrast to yours, and now I'm very angry. And it's like, we're just having fun here. I think the biggest change too is what I think shows progress too is, I think one of the I think about this a lot. One of the most common questions I would get would be Kitty Pryde's sexuality. Next Monday. And now look where we are. Like it's happened. But I think like over time there has to be a degree of like education with the fans too, that like Jordan can't make that decision on his own, or whoever's
Right.
writing. Like, it's a mountain to climb. I think
This is Walter Disney Corporation.
yes.
Yeah.
So the rage that would sometimes go to me or to Jordan over questions like that we, because I think the big disconnect for a lot of fans is X-Men Monday is not a weekly trial for the X Office. It's not me telling them why they've done wrong.
Are
Yeah.
you telling me it may be a marketing tool for Marvel?
You're
still a bit of journalism to it. I'm not going after your bona fides.
no,
But when you have someone going on record 300 times, both parties are getting a little something out of it. That's the nature of any sort of media journalism.
that is exactly. I mean, you are the bad boy of X-Men podcasting. I am the compliant media arm. I think Bleeding Cool once called me that. I think, or like X-Men Monday, the compliant media
That's
arm.
funny. You gotta laugh. You gotta laugh.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, like, but again, it's like, what is going to happen? Am I going to go, hey, Marvel, I would like to interview Tom Brevoort, and I'd also like to put him on trial, and they're going to go, thank you very much, have a good day.
X-Men Monday.
There is a set of expectations that need to be had, and I experienced this running CXF, and I will be the first to claim that I absolutely misstepped on some of those things. In fact, we're going to talk about one of them in this podcast, and I think there's maybe one other person out there that really knows this story, and I think it's very funny. But this is a regular episode of the podcast 15 minutes in. It is not, if you have already assumed, an interview thing. And we are going to talk about something that comes up briefly in the very first X-Men Monday. Which, by the way, I did look back. My question was harassing Jordan about Savage Land children.
About Hellion.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was Logan's kid.
It was Logan and Colossus's kid. I just said,
Yeah.
are y'all going to ever let them hang out? Like, I don't need them to be dads. I just want the kids to hang out.
Amazing.
And it was beautiful, and I love it. And Jordan tolerated a lot of my specific brand of nonsense, which was doing exactly what Chris is saying, but from a place of love.
Love that guy.
I will say before we move on,
Yeah.
Yes.
the biggest change you asked, like, how it's changed. Tom, when he comes on, which I usually just do Tom on the big ones, like 300.
Mm-hmm.
Tom has no rules about what can't be asked. He will take things on head on.
Okay.
Which, if you've read his newsletter,
Yeah.
is, you either love it or hate it. But it's very refreshing, because to talk to somebody in comics who is kind of fearless. And the first time I interviewed Tom for X-Men Monday 250, I want to say, I remember asking him a question and kind of leading up, like, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. And he said, no, if the fans want to know, I want to answer it. And I thought that was really refreshing. And again, it goes very bad because the fans would go, what? He doesn't care at all about this character. But yeah, so I think that's a big change. And I think, people who are newer to comics obviously don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but it's refreshing that Tom is willing to play that role.
He's been around for long enough. He doesn't take crap from anybody. He just gives crap. So, but to Zach's point, we did theme this episode around some milestones. So we have yet to read X-Men 300. We can talk a little bit about that at the end of the episode, but each of these stories, each of these stories was referenced in the first one will be from X-Men Monday 1, then 100, and then 200. And we thought this would be a fun way to look back on your time with the column. So the first one was a little tricky because when you started X-Men Monday, it's sort of like pre-Krakoa. We're not there yet. And
we get the first piece of Pepe Larraz art of Sage in black and white with no context.
So went with a story that's referenced right at the beginning. It's not really talked about that much, but this was a fun one to revisit for me because I don't think when this came out, I actually read it the entire way through. This is the return of Wolverine from 2018. It is written by Charles Soule, and I don't remember what the solicit said about Steve McNiven.
It was supposed to be 5 issues of Charles Soule and Steve McNiven.
I would assume, given Death of Wolverine was that, but it's not that. It's 2 issues of Steve and 3 issues of a very talented colleague, but definitely not the same.
Are you Colleague of Steve, not colleague of ours. Sorry. I was like, friend of the show and colleague are two different words, Adam.
Let's say friend of the show. Declan
I'd say friend of the show.
Yeah.
Declan bought me coffee once. I'm calling him a friend of the show.
Cheers.
Declan bought me coffee because of this comic. We'll get into that in a second. Chris, you were still in the comic space at the time, but not running X-Men Monday yet. What do you remember about the reaction of Return of Wolverine as it was coming to town?
So I had the same reaction. I feel like I wasn't really reading every X-Men comic before Krakoa. And then
right, you were still sane.
Yeah, yeah. But I would read like X-Men Gold, X-Men Blue, and I think it was like, oh, this is going to be important, I guess. So I do remember buying the single issues of Return of Wolverine. I had the same feeling when I revisited these issues, which is like, wait a minute, didn't he appear in a one-shot big Marvel event with the Infinity? He was like driving a beer truck.
Yes.
And then he was also in a Jerry Infinity Gauntlet thing,
which is
at the end of this.
It's teased at the end of this.
But it was very. I feel like looking back, I had the same thoughts. It's like, did Marvel have a plan? Like, what was going on here?
So here's the big answer. No,
yeah.
They
did. They wanted him back. That was their plan.
They knew that we have to get everybody back. Or at least we have to build up for the Krakoa stuff. So Wolverine needs to be around. Cyclops needs to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need to get these pieces back on the chessboard.
Yeah,
and they tapped Jason Aaron. It's like, oh yeah, I'll put him in this Marvel Legacy #1 as like a big thing. And he'll have a Soul Stone or one of the stones, and it will work with this Infinity story that's going on. And then he's in the promo for this Infinity story that's going on, and then actually he's not going to be in the story, and Black Widow's going to take his spot, and then because now he has to do this story instead, it becomes this whole giant mess. Do you remember the Hunt for Wolverine, Where's Wolverine stuff that they were doing, where they would have like one page of Wolverine showing up after a comic? Like, guess I missed something here.
It was absolutely bizarre, and we start off with this cover always makes me laugh. The cover to Return of Wolverine #1, where Steve McNiven has Wolverine basically like breaking out of a pile of baked potatoes, really always makes me laugh. But seriously, I will say, as like lousy as this plot is, because it's pretty bad. The Barry Windsor Smith ode that McNiven is doing. Now, I don't know if either of you are reading Daredevil Cold Day from Hell that McNiven is doing right now.
Not currently. That was one that I was like, when this is finished, I'm going to sit down and read all this at once.
It's only 3 issues, but McNiven is doing a spot on amazing Elektra Lives Again era Frank Miller on every page, including like the layouts, the line widths. And here he's really channeling Barry Windsor Smith. And it's like, he's doing a pretty good job. I'm like, that really does look like Barry Windsor Smith. This is good.
I think that's interesting because like Jay Leiston, who inks him here, he's the guy who has been inking McNiven for a while.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like this. It is at first I thought, is he a little rushed? Like, what's going on with the art? But then I started to see that, no, this is very much a artistic homage to Barry Windsor Smith. And I think that's a very interesting choice here, especially because it's not like McNiven's a second-rate Wolverine artist.
No.
He probably has the second best-selling Wolverine trade paperback of anybody.
So we've got this sort of artistic homage. Unfortunately, like I said, it doesn't last for very long. Declan Shalvey is doing the bulk of the artwork for this, but the plot is pretty dang thin. Chris, what did you think of this back to life sci-fi stuff?
Well, I thought, first of all, it's like, okay, why did they kill him? And his return, it has to be worth it. It has to be like a big story, a big reason. And this was not a good payoff.
No.
Like, there was nothing in here that made that worthwhile. The other thing was there was a lot of resurrection talk about it, like the villain's power or whatever is resurrection. And I was like, why didn't we just wait for Krakoa and then we could just resurrect him here? So these were the thoughts going through my head. Overall, I was never a big fan of the Charles Soule, like Wolverine stuff.
Interesting.
I actually don't feel like any of Charles Soule's X stuff has really gone over with me.
I'm generally on the same page with the exception of Death of Wolverine. I remember when that came out, I really enjoyed Death of Wolverine. Like the narration in that first issue specifically hit for me really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, I want to see what happens here.
I
Especially
did
with
think,
McNiven being back.
yeah, I did some props that I was like, I'm trying to understand, like, okay, what is the point of this? Aside from getting it back on the board. But it was like, okay, it's interesting. He's talking to all the different sides of himself in his head. And it's like, it's kind of an exploration of Wolverine and resituating him in the Marvel universe. Like, he is a hero. He's not this monster or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I do take issue with, in one of the issues, there's a scene where he's like in the prison in his head. There's like AOA Wolverine.
I did see that.
Which is very like variant cover brain, where it's
Yep.
like, it's like the Jean Grey miniseries where it's like, oh, here's AOA Jean Grey. It's like,
I don't know why you would think that this comic that had 69 alternate covers to it would have any sort of variant cover brain.
yeah.
That's insane. It's only a nice number of covers, including 1, 2, 3, 5 that are just redraws of whatever costume Steve McNiven wanted to put on the baked potato
And
cover.
that's a lot of baked potatoes,
It's a lot of baked potatoes.
Yeah. But Chris, to your point, I mean, like it does seem like what are we doing here? Because, by the time you get to the end, you realize that the villain of this story is basically trying to pull a Necrotia. Like,
Yeah.
she's going to kill everybody on Earth and then bring them back as her slave. And I'm like, we've already done this, like this was a big crossover for the X-Men already. And like the villain is not interesting at all.
You're talking about Persephone?
Yes. Like
Persephone, who has death powers.
Yeah. It's not doing anything of interest. It's not tied to like Death of Wolverine. I didn't love it, but it was Soule and McNiven doing Wolverine's greatest hits for 5 issues, and we're going to hit all of these different landmarks, and then boom, we're going to encase him in adamantium. He's gone. Great.
Okay, but guys, you're missing the point. You're asking what the point of this story was, and I think you're all way off. It's because, look, you ever hear any stories about my claws getting hot? Hot enough to ignite fuel?
How are we not talking?
Are you forgetting about the hot claws? Because the point of the story is that when Wolverine comes back, he doesn't just have a berserker rage, buddy. His claws, they get hot.
Man,
he's got the hot claws, which this gets into more comics journalism promotion stuff, because I remember that was the big thing that Soule was pushing for this, is that there's hot claws and it's this big new thing for Wolverine. And I've got to say, the promo for hot claws does not live up to the story potential, where his claws get a little bit hot sometimes. And that's all that happens.
Didn't they make a Marvel Legends Wolverine with hot claws?
Yeah,
they did,
I'm sure
right?
they did, because nothing continues to make me laugh more than #hot claws.
But didn't they? So hot claws, and they never followed up on it, but they did have on the Merry X-Men special.
Yes,
right?
hot claws. The hot claws that saved Hanukkah. Yes.
That was it, right? That
was it.
Started?
Honestly, I'm
Pretty
okay
good
with that, because
callback.
that's the best thing that could ever happen to hot claws, is that they save Hanukkah, and then we never have to worry about them again. Though I cannot wait for some writer somewhere down the road to be like, and yeah, we all remember how Wolverine's claws get hot.
Yeah, all he has to do is just summon his inner energy, and he gets tired after he uses his hot claws.
Oh yeah, no, he's got a refractory period after that. But
Zach, I do have to ask, given that you are so versed in the laws of thermodynamics, can you actually ignite gasoline by just splashing it over something that's hot? I feel like that's not how fire works.
I mean, what you're assuming is that like the hotness is hot enough that it can combust something in the air that acts as a fuel source to hit the gasoline, because you're not going to have any sparks from that generally if it's perfectly clean air. But there's like dust and junk in the air. Like
dust and junk.
There's
scientific.
but
Chris is not
do you
impressed
know-
by this.
Hey, we're gonna move into HVAC world for a second. You know why you have a filter on your furnace, Adam? Because there's dust and stuff,
oh,
and
well, yeah.
it will catch fire.
Okay, that's a
It
good
will
reason.
combust.
That's a good reason. All right.
Yes.
So yeah, Hot Claws are a bust from day one.
Can I say what a weird
Yes.
when the X-Men show up in this?
Yeah,
I was like, wow, what a weird time for the X-Men. Like Kitty
Yeah.
Pryde's
forgot.
she's the leader, and they retreat.
Uh-huh.
But this is the weird thing, because it's in that weird. It's like the disassembled-ish era where they're like, what are we're biding time right now, right? So you
Mhm.
get the Kitty Pryde and Iceman, and then also some of the members of X-Men Red
Mhm.
are in this, like Jean and Storm, and it's like this is a grab bag of a team if I've ever seen one. It
Yeah.
doesn't have any plot relevance, because here's the plot for folks who don't know: Persephone resurrects Wolverine. She's trying to resurrect a zombie army. It doesn't matter. Wolverine stops her
In space.
In space.
in space. In space.
In space.
One thing I'll say, a little X-Men Monday trivia, and it ties into hit movie Deadpool Wolverine.
Yes.
Stay with me.
Yes.
So Jordan, in one of the, I think it was the Wolverine edition of X-Men Monday, where he talked only about Wolverine, he explained that Wolverine's Krakoa costume, how he created it, or how they came to it, was he took a shot of Declan's scene with him in the X-Force costume, and Jordan just colored it brown. And he said, let's use this. And that's the costume that appears in the John Byrne scene in Deadpool Wolverine. Because I don't know if you saw it. I don't think, Zach, you saw it, but like
I have seen it.
He's seen it.
I do not care for that film.
Yes, same. But when it came out, though, everyone's like, oh, the John Byrne costume. And then people are like, no, that's the Krakoa costume. And so I was like, that's the Krakoa costume that X-Men Monday revealed the secret of.
Nice. I love
And-
this.
Yeah. Ryan,
Wolverine-
Okay, and all I'm
me.
going to say about that costume is he was not wearing that costume when he fought Hulk. That's all.
Exactly. Yep.
Like, if you're going to be pedantic, if you're asking me to be pedantic, which that movie is, then get it right.
Yeah.
Like,
Wolverine is, we should also mention, wearing that black and red costume in this for a brief period of time, and it's not a good costume.
see, here's the thing.
It's like
I
he's
actually
wearing
don't
it's a chef's jacket. It's
It
not
is.
good.
I don't think that costume is bad. I
is.
think it's a bad Wolverine. I don't think it's a bad character design. I think it's a bad Wolverine costume.
Okay.
Like, it in universe, it's supposed to be like a generic henchman costume for this group, and I think it actually works pretty well with that.
I guess that's fair.
It's weird that he's wearing it the whole time instead of his regular clothes, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I will say, for the Declan Shalvey does 3 issues in the middle of this, and we've had Dec on the show. I like Dec. I really enjoy his art. It feels rushed here, and the coloring is not doing him any favors. Laura Martin just is doing too like saturated of colors for his art to really hit the way it should in tone. So it feels like Chris Somney, but without the joy. Like, the line work doesn't have any joy in it, but the colors do it. So you're like stuck with it, and it's a weird mix. I think
It's hard to have joy when this is the story. It's not exactly a very fun thing to draw.
Right. I think I've mentioned this on the show, but if you go back to our whatever the first, it would have been 2019, whatever the first C2E2 episode we did was, there is an interview with me and Declan at the convention center. And right before that, Declan has me meet him at the restaurant there to do the interview. And he shakes my hand and he said, "So," and he gets an Irish accent that I'm not going to do. He said, "So, I hear you didn't like my X-Men or my Wolverine." And I said, "Okay, hold on. 1, why do you know that? 2, this is an aggressive way to start a conversation, buddy."
I like how you said you weren't going to do the accent, and then you tried and failed.
Yeah, I half did it. It's fine.
Guys, can we rake this on our big old list?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Look at this.
I think it's about time.
Chris is pulling the Adam and is like, let's get on with it. All right. So, folks.
That's fair. How much does anyone want to hear about Return of Wolverine? I mostly just wanted to talk about
No, I want to talk about the other stuff. So, talk about the big old list, Zach. Tell everybody.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's
going
my
on.
part. Hey, Chris, did you know that we've ranked 1,500 different X-Men comics from
No,
best to worst on our big
not
old list?
1,500, Zach. 1,050. That's a difference.
1,050. Those are different numbers. You're right.
You guys want me to take it from here? We got House of X, Powers of 10, number one spot. We got World of Tomorrow at the bottom.
That's true. Do you know off the top of your head what number 500 is on the list? Because it's not the one that's online, because I haven't updated that in a few weeks.
I'm going to say X-Men Micronauts. I don't know.
No, it's X-Men Gold, but the one shot from 2013.
Oh, okay. Can I tell you, I just finished the X-Men 2099 Omnibus, and at the end of it, it goes to be continued in the World of Tomorrow, and they do not run that in the story.
Nope.
So it's incomplete. You have no idea what happens to these characters.
Thank God. Never read it.
No one should have to read that.
Read it.
I'm telling you, it's a truly atrocious comic.
It really is.
We don't have a lot of Charles Soule Wolverine stuff on here. We do have Hunt for Wolverine.
And we probably have some Astonishing on here, don't we?
We definitely have Astonishing. Weapon Lost is at 676. That's the comic where Doug gets addicted to the internet.
Jesus. I think Doug gets called out in this comic briefly. I think they mentioned Doug.
That would make sense.
Hacker Doug.
I don't know why this is what feels like so high on the list. Because like Deadpool Bad Blood is at 681. The first Adam X is at 678. And I feel like this Wolverine story is worse than those.
I would agree. Is this better or worse than Wolverine and Jubilee at 705?
Chris, do you have strong opinions on Wolverine and Jubilee?
Is that the Phil Noto one?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, it is.
I haven't read it, but
it's early Noto.
I talked to him about it at a con for X-Men Monday, but I haven't read it. So.
That's okay. That's okay.
Astonishing X-Men Life of X is at 715, and I feel like this is actually worse than that, though.
Yeah, I would agree. Is this better or worse than Reign of Terra at 802?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reign of Terra is the worst one of those.
Okay,
two.
So this is a 700s book, is what you're telling me.
Well, yes, it is, because that's those two issues of the Larry Hama Wolverine where he trains with Elektra at 800. That's better. This is worse than Wildcats X-Men though at 719 or 791.
I would agree. It's worse than Days of Future Present at 796. That has Art Adams art at least on one.
This is worse than Spotlight on the Starjammers.
But it's better than that issue of Alpha Flight where they dress up like X Factor.
Chris, had you read that issue of Alpha Flight?
I heard about it. That was on the Duplicates episode?
Yeah.
I don't. You think I remember episodes that I talk about things on?
I will say I bought a lot of bad X-Men comics because of you guys. Because
yes,
that's the nicest
that's
thing
all
anyone
I want in the world.
I'll listen to your show and go, I got to read this. I read that. I read that goddamn Gambit Bishop miniseries after.
Oh, that one's bad.
Yeah. I remember you telling me about that.
I did tell you about that, and I went to mycomicshop.com, whatever the thing is, and I just ordered everything on the list. And stupid me, one of them is a reprint of their first, the Alpha Omega or whatever. And I was like, well, now I've got this thing I don't need.
Yeah, that one.
So sorry, Chris.
That one's not good. What I think is good is a very interesting comic here. And that's something that you talked about on your 100th edition of X-Men Monday. It's by friend of the show, Leah Williams.
Wait, did we rank
David
it?
Baldion.
Did we rank the Wolverine one?
Oh,
798.
We did. 798. I'm sorry. I thought that was
Chris. We gotta have you on more often. You're keeping.
I'm not
us
a Boda
on,
boy. I'm so confused.
You're keeping us on task, and I appreciate
that's
that.
the journalism professionalism right there that we expect from X-Men Monday. No, but we're talking about Gwenpool Strikes Back by David Baldion and Leah Williams.
Nice. Any fond memories of talking about Gwenpool on X-Men Monday, Chris?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you mentioned like Jordan and Leah were pretty excited about that. I do feel like Jordan would bring up Gwenpool a lot. And
no one else wanted to talk about it?
Every time we'd have whenever you ask, like, what are you most proud of? I think that was one of the things he was most proud of is bringing her into Krakoa. I really enjoyed this, rereading this. I think this was a good one. And I like that it took some big swings and it played with the format. it makes me want to read original Gwenpool because I've never read that.
Whoa, Chris, have you not read like the Chris Hastings
Nope.
Girahiru?
No.
Hey, it's really good.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with Gwenpool is that Gwenpool is intentionally a character that they made as a bit for a variant cover. Chris Pachalo draws her. That's it. It was, let's do a bit. And then they said, people are cosplaying as her. Let's make her a comic. So she appears in backups in Howard the Duck. This is how much faith they have in this character, is that they're putting her in backups of Howard the Duck.
A good series.
I like the Chip Zdarsky, Joe Keonos, Howard the Duck. Both volumes of it that came out in the same year.
Yeah.
Both of those.
People were reading that.
I read that. It's good.
Not a lot of people were reading that, but people were reading that. It is the only Marvel comic that has famous author Ta-Nehisi Coates as an alien in it.
Yeah. I remember that.
And anyway, yeah, because we ranked that on the podcast. Okay, great. That's why you remember that. That makes sense. Anyway, characters shouldn't work, but it becomes a really fun thing in format. And here's the truth. A handful of people get Gwenpool. And then anyone who remembers when MASH was on in like regular episodes does not understand what this is.
People who think that the X-Men became villains
Might
can't
be
comprehend
confused.
it.
Yeah.
And I can sympathize with it because Gwenpool's a weird character. Because you have to explain that actually, no, she's not related to Deadpool or to Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
She is a third, more different thing.
But now there's a new comic where she is Gwen Stacy.
She is Gwen Stacy, and she just killed a version of Gwenpool in the most recent issue.
Spoilers for that.
That came out a couple weeks ago.
By the way, I'm just going to say, when I heard that new Gwenpool series was coming out, I had one question. I shot Jordan a message, and I said, all I want to know, but I don't care. Like, I know how marketing works. I don't care. Are you editing this? And he said, yeah, I am. I said, okay, cool. I really hope it's great, bud. Yeah. I think it sounds like you know exactly what you're doing here.
There you go.
That's right.
Well,
but Jordan loves this character, and Leah absolutely loves and adores this character in this book.
Well, they couldn't find a better. I love when Leah and David work together. Loved them on X Factor. I'm really excited for their new book, Voyeur, which just got announced. And I just think that when Baldion is really pushing himself to the limits of what the page can actually do, and this has so many meta gags in it, like in every. I mean, it's only 5 issues? How many?
5 issues, yeah.
I mean, just one after another, because of for folks who don't know Gwenpool, she has the power to travel via the white space out of panels. Like the gutter is her power. And
like the metal monster or whatever from what is it called? From I Think You Should Leave. What's that thing called? The metal moloid or whatever, that the wall is his floor?
No, Zach. The gutter, like from Scott McCloud's
right.
Understanding
I'm right.
Comics.
I'm right about this. This is a good analogy. If I remembered the reference, this would be a great analogy. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
But
friend.
we get Gwenpool interacting with everybody from Spider-Man to the Fantastic Four to Deadpool, to the culmination of this story ends up in some version of the Marvel swimsuit specials where the Avengers are all there, and she's gotten them into a Sims-like fighting tournament. I mean, and in the midst of all of this, like, really bananas stuff, and some might say very, like, on the nose, pop culture referencey type stuff, it also has a lot of heart. Like, it still manages to showcase just what this character is all about, how she's feeling, what she's going through, why she's acting the way she is. And it really works. When you finally get the reveal at the end of this that she is going to have a home in Krakoa and is sort of being designated as a mutant for that purpose, I don't know. It's really emotional.
So here's the meta thing that's going on with this book. It's that old people don't understand Gwenpool, and they're like, "Why are we publishing this? The sales are mediocre. Like, what are we doing?" Gwenpool, being a very meta character, has figured this out and says, "Oh, I have to do something to generate sales and generate attention." So for the first chunk of this book, she's being insufferable. Like, both if you were a previous fan of Gwenpool or if you are just a fan of Marvel stuff, like, she's being the worst, very intentionally, very deliberately, to get attention. She's acting out for attention so that she doesn't get erased from all of history. And the thing is, that was not a plot contrivance. That was just the conversations that were actually happening.
Yeah, that's why the book is so much fun and it's so smart.
So when I wasn't reading this when it was coming out because I didn't know it was an X book, and then I probably saw it from you guys on like the excitement online of like,
I believe we may have broken the story.
Okay, there you go. So then it was like, I got to go buy this and it had the data pages. Like, this is officially like a stealth Krakoa title. And I remember I couldn't get the swimsuit issue for, I guess that one sold with the older fans, but I couldn't get that one when I went back to get all the issues. And I got that one years later, like online, I bought it. But yeah, I love that. But what was it like for you guys, like who were reading it and fans of Leah, and when you got to that reveal, like, did you get to experience it or did you kind of have an inside track?
I did not know that was going on. One thing I'll say, and I think pretty much anyone who is friendly with a comics creator will generally have the same comment, is that there's like a line of respect of, I'm not going to ask about what's going on in your stuff, and you don't need to tell me about that. Like, I met Leah because she was part of like the X-Men fan-y community for a little bit beforehand. She had I think something come out in
Domino?
No, it was before Domino even. It was in a backup in Totally Awesome Hulk, or a Totally Awesome Hulk annual.
Yeah.
But that was like it. And then her and I just started like becoming friendly online and talking about things. So I knew that she was working on this book. We had been chatting about it in general. And the most that got revealed was, yeah, all the behind the scenes stuff that we're alluding to in this book, that's just not fiction. That's just like the reality of what's going on with this. But, you know, when the actual reveal came out, one, I said, Leah, this is truly incredible. This is fantastic. And from a meta sense, it works because this is Jordan's pet character.
Yeah.
Jordan loves this character and said, well, now Krakoa is very popular and I can just put her here and no one will mess with this for a while. For a while. And then lo and behold, it becomes this really cool little, it's this really fun little exploration of this character and like what they're going through and just having fun with the Marvel universe. And especially for people like us, having fun with the fan community. Because like, I would not actually hand this book to most people because I was like, you'll get the core underlying thing of this, but there's a lot here that you're just not going to hit on. Like, you're not going to understand that some of these things that they're saying are very specific dated references to exactly the online culture that was happening in 2018 and 2019.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I appreciate this book. I think I'm a little too old and not as online as when it was written. Yeah. And I think if I was younger and more online, I would really love this book. But I appreciate the book and I enjoyed it. So I get what it's going for.
I'm really interested to see how this book ages over time because...
Well, and I think that's an interesting conversation, Adam.
Yeah, because it still has gags, even if they are dated or memes or whatever they are of the time period, like they still work. So I still think the jokes land. What I think is the most interesting thing for me is all of the self-aware references to art and writing that happen in this book. You know, the idea that Gwenpool is calling out Terry Dodson for, this is the pose that I want on the cover. You know,
give me some D cups, Terry.
Yeah. When we get to towards the end of the story, where each of the past versions of Gwenpool are not only there, but depicted in the style that they were drawn in by the individual artists. The
And I just want to be clear, because I'm a guy who had read all of those appearances of the different Gwenpools at the time, not just drawn that way, but incredibly accurate to what in some cases were like 2 pages worth of content and how the character was written in those specific pages by that specific writing team.
yeah,
It's incredible how in depth that gets if you had read every appearance of Gwenpool up until this point, which is an insane thing to do.
yeah, but I mean, to the point where it's Hastings, right, who appears as a cloud for a page and gets a 1-page writing credit in the one issue. I mean, I love it. I love it.
It's really cool, and to the point of it aging well. It's one thing that I think had to reckon with as I've gotten older is that I actually think it's super okay if art is only like if it ages poorly in that it doesn't hit as hard after the moment. It's okay for something to be really cool and hit a zeitgeist at one moment and not have that same effect 5-10 years down the line. Like I think you need art that hits for an exact time period and art that's timeless. Like you need both in that ecosystem.
It is
Sure.
a disposable art form, kind of, if you think about it.
Mhm.
It's quick read. You're done in 15 minutes. I think Matthew Rosenberg talks about that a lot in his podcast, about how he always wishes more people in comics responded to the moment, because comics, you can turn them around so quickly that you can be responding to current events or things happening or things you're thinking about. And he brings it up a lot. And I think that's like similar to what you're saying here.
It's absolutely, it's that same mindset. I'll say on downsides of this book, I think that some of the meta elements of this may not be communicated as effectively as they want it to be. Like it is almost too clever in some places, I feel. Especially with I think some of the concept of I'm going to give myself a new power where if I think it, then I can just rewrite the comic to make it happen. I like it in concept. I think execution, it's a very challenging thing to get across, and Baudion and Williams do a really good job trying to push it through. But there's some cases where it doesn't fully land for me. And that was the same when I read this, when it first came out.
Well, I think we should get into ranking this. At 111, we have X Factor Volume 3, 1-6, The Longest Night. And I believe the highest Leah Williams that we have is up at, where is What If Magic?
Well, the good thing is that X Factor is not Leah Williams. That one right there, The Longest Night, that's not Leah's.
Which one is that?
That's the start of the X Factor Investigations run.
Oh, well, I like this better than that.
Do you really? Okay, I'm going to have to put a hard ceiling right above it, though, because this is not better than Age of X-Man Next Gen.
Really? Yeah, it
That's
is.
got Marcus, but that's... I'm thinking.
I would think this is...
I did not think that you and I were going to have this conversation, Adam. I didn't think that we would be on these differing sides of it. I thought it was going to be the opposite, where I was going to be talking it up and you were going to be like, I like it, but it's got some challenges.
I don't think it has any challenges. I honestly think it is a 5-issue home run, and Baldion is killing it. Like, Leah is killing it. Like, both of them are so in their zone on this thing that it's like, it's pretty... I don't know. Like, you're like, it doesn't work. And I'm thinking, there's a whole
I didn't
awesome
say it doesn't work. I said there's some challenges with it.
I think
Okay.
if only you guys had a tiebreaker here. If you had someone else present.
Chris, where do you stand on this? Am I
gotta
going
go back
too
to
high?
the Dave and Buster's. I think, where do you have Leah's X Factor?
We've done the first chunk of that.
Yeah,
the first few issues.
That's what I was trying to find.
Because I like this better than that. I think this is more fun.
I think we do too. That first chunk of the X Factor, that's at 219. That's at 219 because that arc gets weirdly truncated halfway through to do Ten of Swords.
Yeah.
And like doesn't hit the resolution perfectly.
What I will say, my 2 cents on this is there's probably not a lot of comics like this on your list. It takes big swings. It's funny. It's fun. It's especially good commentary on the industry and the kind of modern industry. And it breaks my heart that X fans don't like fun, because we could have more stuff like this.
Yes.
We could have more stuff like this.
You
Here's what I'm
mentioned
looking at, Adam.
Howard the Duck
Howard
before.
the Duck, that's at 164, and this is better than that Howard the Duck arc.
I would agree. So I think we're getting up there a little bit.
We're getting up. This is here's my ceiling on this, actually.
Yeah.
120 is X-Men Black Emma Frost.
Okay, that's fair.
I think X-Men Black Emma Frost as a one-shot piece of comics, as a collected work, works better than this Gwenpool story, which I have to emphasize I really like.
Do you like
I do enjoy this comic a lot, and I was chuckling to myself a lot as I was reading it.
Chris, is this better or worse than the first 4 issues of Hellions at 127?
Ooh. All right, this is where my X-Fan brain comes in, because I do like all the drama in that. And so I'm going to defer to... I'm going to go X-Fan and B. I don't like fun now. I want continuity. I want my complex X-Drama.
All right.
Right below that is the, I think, perfect middle ground of both of those things. It is the Wolverine and Dupe miniseries, the 2-issue X-Statics.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
I really love the Darwin Cook stuff in that. I do think this, as a work, edges it out a bit. I would propose putting it at the new 128.
I'm fine with that. Chris?
I'm fine with it.
All right.
It's our list, right, guys?
That's right.
Exactly.
Honorary votable.
That R is collective, because just so you know, every opinion on here is shared by everyone who listens to this podcast. And definitely always shared by me and Adam, even in the future. We can't be mad at ourselves in the past.
No. No. So the last one we're going to revisit is from 2023. So we're up to X-Men Monday 200. And this is a latter arc of Jerry Duggan's X-Men, which is volume 6. This is 19 to 21, Lord of the Brood. Now,
and what is that one people are asking? That's the Brood genocide debate.
Yes.
That's the Brood genocide debate. Now, here's the thing.
Yes.
I believe a certain comic book website got the preview for X-Men number 20, which is the second issue of this. And the preview has Iceman saying, man, we really should just wipe out all of the Brood. And that's where the preview ended. And I, being a little bit of a stinker sometimes.
You stinker.
Did title it, in this X-Men preview, Iceman advocates for genocide. And I'm not going to name names, but someone not in comics at the time, but someone pulled me aside and said, Zach, this is very funny, and I agree with you. But also, you are going to get in trouble if you keep this title published for more than the 5 minutes that's already up. This is a very provocative title. And I said, that's fair. And I changed it to something less provocative. But then I did get a bigger chuckle when I read that full issue. And the entire thing about this story is the X-Men are like, yeah, a couple of us think we should do a genocide on the Brood.
They don't shy away at all. Rereading it,
it is the text of the comics.
Yeah. And the X-Men Monday link is that Jordan and I talk about the genocide debate in the X-Men Monday. I revisited it. I don't know if you guys, Adam, you learned it or anything when you picked this out, but the argument that Jordan and I get into is like Jordan. it's the kind of Jordan exchange where it's like, this is funny in the moment, but I don't know how fans might take this. But he was like, because in print it reads differently than him and I just riffing. But like,
right? If you don't know, like I read Jordan's interviews differently because I've talked to him like for many hours of my life at this point, enough to get his vibe.
Yeah,
I can imagine a stranger not picking up on
because he was
some
like,
of the jokiness.
And I remember even like what I can flashbacks like putting this together. Like, do I need to put like some laughs in here in brackets? Because it's like Jordan said, like, I hate all bugs, just all bugs. And he's like, do I want them all dead though? And he's like, I don't know if I want that. And the argument I made was taking like devil's advocate, the Cyclops opinion. It's like, okay, let's say mosquitoes. Mosquitoes can kill people, if they carry those diseases. So if we care about life, is it justified to destroy all mosquitoes? And Jordan's like, valid. I don't want to make that call. And I told him, I will make that call. And that's where we ended it.
I love this. This is great. This is great. While that is seemingly the core of the text, Jerry is following up on a Hickman story from very early in volume 5 that involved Brew from Wolverine and the X-Men eating something called the King Egg, which was created by the Kree, so that he could mentally control all of the Brood. Now,
I want to be clear about this one thing.
Yeah.
Brew did not know. This is not in this story. Brew did not eat the egg to gain control of all of the Brood.
He didn't know what
Brew
it was.
ate the egg because he was hungry.
Right. Yeah. They looked away.
People say Jonathan Hickman doesn't do jokes.
Yeah.
And I've been people sometimes. Jonathan Hickman loves a good joke.
So Brew is supposedly in charge, but the Brood are eating people. They're out here invading, and it's like, well, what's going on? We got to figure this out. So I gotta say, with one big exception, I was actually like on board for this plot. I remember when this was coming out, I was reading the Captain Marvel issues, which are tangential to this storyline, which are much worse in quality, and not enjoying this at all. Just reading these 3 X-Men issues by themselves, I actually thought it worked out, because not only do you have the X-Men versus the Brood stuff, you also have a fun Forge and Monet doing a time loop thing with the Nowhere Celestial Skull. The one thing that I really did not like about this has nothing to do with the Brood. It has nothing to do with the genocide debate. It is that the reason that Brood does not have full control over the Brood is because Jerry feels the need to bring back one of the worst Marvel villains that he brought in like issue 4 or something of this run. I don't understand what this character is doing here. I hate it so much. It's Nightmare.
Chris, are you a Nightmare guy?
Love Nightmare.
You a Nightmare fan?
I remember at the time, again, like the Gene fans were really, because like Gene slapped Nightmare.
Gene,
and that's how this started.
Listen, if you like Gene, that's great. You know that the people who really like Gene are a little much, right? We all know.
Yeah, we know that. So Gene slapped Nightmare in issue 3 or 4, I think. And everyone's like, yes, go Gene, you slapping Nightmare. And then Nightmare comes back in this and slaps Gene. And that's how this kind of, I guess it's all a revenge plot, or the Brood were dreaming, or Brew was dreaming.
Brew is dreaming, but Nightmare has got control.
And getting nightmares from it. That's the idea. Here's my problem with Nightmare just as a villain. Nightmare forces you to do generally the one story, which is all of the members of the team have a different nightmare. And that's not a great story. Mm-hmm. And that's not a Marvel thing. Pretty much every version of media has had that story, and it's never a great story. I don't get why people keep going to it. It is, I guess, showing, not telling, but it's kind of just straight up telling you what the characters are afraid of. So maybe it is just telling. I don't know. I don't like Nightmare.
I enjoyed this. I, like you, Adam, I also was reading the Captain Marvel, and I remember how confused I was at the time because the covers were similar. I thought it was a crossover, and it's really 2 different stories, and that they kind of come together at the end. But you really don't have to read the Captain Marvel.
They don't even really come together at the end. Half of this team shows up for 2 panels. I had to go back to that Captain Marvel. I was like, how does it end again?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They don't do anything.
I was reminded how Jerry's X-Men, in the middle, toward the end, it was kind of like a mishmash of different plots and tying up plots. Like Kingpin shows up in this, like,
oh right,
out of context. It's like there's a lot going on here.
I love Kingpin showing up on Krakoa through a technicality with his wife is beautiful and fantastic, and I love it. And in this issue, in this series, it works as a great thing. I wish there was more time in the last chunk of X-Men to do whatever plot they really wanted to do with that, because that gets dropped for time, essentially. Yeah. Yes, he plays a role in other stories later down the road, but not the role that you would have him play if you were setting him up for more like you were doing here. And I think that's one challenge, but that's, in my mind, if I'm just looking at these 3 issues, there's a couple of things that really stand out. One, I think Stefano Castelli is
just going to say that.
Great job.
Yep. X-Men Red artist extraordinaire.
Love Stefano. Great, great artist. Keep on keeping on. I think that works really well. I do think, and this is true for all of Duggan's run, I think the narration is a little heavy-handed, and I don't love the omniscient narrator on it. That's a personal thing. That never clicks for me in this. And I feel like everyone gets immediately entrenched in their positions because this is only 3 issues. Like they have to be all or nothing on one side or the other of this debate.
Mm-hmm.
Without enough buildup to get there. Like Iceman is talking about how much he hates the Brood. And I'm like, Iceman, I think you were a background character in one Brood story, but you don't have a connection with these people. You weren't in the Brood saga. You weren't in any of this stuff. Like, I don't know why you're so mad about this. And same with Cyclops. Like, Corsair gets impregnated by the Brood and they have to deal with that. But like, it feels like they had to rush to get to the conflict without building up the conflict enough to make it emotionally resonant. Because I get Jean's point 100%. She is the person that would say, I really don't want to do another alien genocide. And Cyclops is the guy who has said, we should genocide some more aliens before. That's consistent with Scott's character. This is only the second time that he said it. Like, he does that.
Can we please talk
pragmatist?
Something that's wild that I completely forgot about until we had this genocide discussion was the data page where Bishop, and I don't know if it's like played for laughs.
Yeah.
You're a Bishop fan, Adam. What are your thoughts on that page where he wants to pull a Wanda?
Well, he essentially comes up with an idea to time travel to erase the Brood, right? I think
no, he wants
to know more mutants. The Brood.
He wants to create another Wanda.
Yeah.
And then have her, program her to wipe out the Brood.
That's an insane conversation, too, because I feel like it's
Thank God it was on the record.
Yeah, I feel like it's trying to seed the idea of, like, a Bishop War College thing that, like, will not exactly pan out later. But this idea...
No, that series had already gone on. That series...
that had already happened.
Existed.
Okay,
yeah,
so
it was happening in parallel. So that was consistent.
Okay, so...
But didn't Bishop do a genocide in Cable?
Yes.
Multiple,
I believe.
So was this like Jerry, we remember when he did that. This is like what he does.
I appreciate that. I think
it's consistent with what Bishop, a pragmatist, would do.
Yeah. But
it is a pragmatist choice that you have to make here.
But the sci-fi invention of, now that I'm remembering it, of the idea that it would be like a Scarlet Witch husk that like had its powers but wouldn't have Scarlet Witch's personality, which then you would, after you did it, kill her. Like it's pretty messed up in multiple ways. And it like, I am a firm believer that what happened with Bishop is character assassination, but
yeah, but it happened.
But it already happened. So it is part of who he is. And I do think that page makes sense. It's really interesting.
Can you imagine if the X Office did that, what the Wanda fans would do to Marvel?
Amazing. Just amazing. Even the suggestion.
Tweet at it. I don't know.
Tweet really hard.
Nothing but be loud. It's fine.
Tapping my keyboard.
Folks, this is a little bit of therapy for some of us right now. This is a little bit of like, there's 10 total people who have these overlapping experiences. And it's nice to be in the same room as some of them.
I will say, I don't think that this rises to heights of some of the other things that we saw in X-Men Volume 6. Like at one.
No, I think this falls apart a little bit.
Yeah, like, I mean, we have at 160.
Other stuff Duggan does.
We have 15 through 17, which is when Forge goes into the vault, which is just
where they go back to the vault.
Yeah, sci-fi mastery.
Forge wears a Caliban suit.
Yeah, I mean that is just. I mean it's totally next level. So
did you rank the Hickman King Brew the egg?
We have not done the King Egg. Okay. We have not done the King Egg, though. Yeah. I would say the King Egg would be higher than this.
I enjoyed that one a lot.
King Egg's like 2 issues of like we're having fun right now. Like we're having a blast with this.
It was very Hickman, just like because it's like Kree scientist. It's like he's just doing his space stuff, but I thought that had great potential. Like this is an example, I think, of, I like Jerry's stories and I enjoyed reading this. It was fun, but it's an example of how Hickman left those plot threads and they're like, okay, let's come up with an angle to tie this up. Yeah. And you're always going to wonder, what could have happened to that? Or maybe.
Well, and I I don't want to play Monday morning quarterback here.
X-Men Monday morning quarterback.
X-Men Monday morning quarterback. That's great. I like that episode title. Let's go. But I do wonder if sometimes when you have a case like that, if it wouldn't be better to say, actually, we're not going to tie up all of these things. We're going to say, hey, sometimes that was just a one-off story, and we're going to use this page space to do something else. And I don't know. I get both sides of it, and I'm sure that is a question that people probably actively discussed when they were planning out series and working with their editors and doing all the things that you have to do to make a comic. But I think in this case, I don't think the resolution to this hits. Like, because this all comes back to, or this all gets done to set up the Brood are all on Nowhere so that it can come and take out one Orcus ship in Fall of the House of X.
Fall of the House of X.
Which, just to be clear, is the exact amount of setup that Hickman did on his Avengers series. Like, he set up multiple issues, say, and this will show up for one scene right at the end as the payoff. Like, I'm not blaming Jerry on that. That's a Universal Comics thing. I just don't think in this case it really hits the way it should.
Yeah.
It feels uneven, especially because it's supposed to, like, build tension in Scott and Jean's marriage, but it feels like a weird amount of tension. Like, it goes from 0 to 100 so quickly.
Not a fan. So I always say, like, the one thing in X-Men fandom that I get crazy about is Scott and Jean. And I will always just, whatever has to happen, keep them together. Everything else I could care less.
Boo.
Yeah. But I am living now. This is the preview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I say this as a fan of both characters. Let them have their fun. Let them do whatever they want. I'm perfectly happy if any characters want to be married and have good stories. I am married. I really enjoy being married. I think my life has not stopped being a story because I'm married. I'd also say you got to figure out how to write a compelling story about them being married and not just
that's why I would complain.
Talk about being married.
I remember asking Jerry about this at Fan Expo Boston after this came out, and I was like, it was a joke. Like, why are you causing trouble for these? And his angle is like, I have to make them suffer. And I remember that was actually like a big fan complaint at the time because Jerry would keep saying, like, I have to put them through pain, and it really plays out in Fall of X. So that's like a Jerry thing.
Characters have to go through conflict? I don't get it. That's insane.
Because we also had the Sync and Laura plot at the same time. Like, it was just breaking everything. So, but yeah.
It is what it is. I think this is not a bad set of comics, but it is a little confounding.
I would say
I don't fully get it.
Yeah, I would say that I think this is not as good as at 381 X-Men Ghost Rider Brood Trouble in the Big Easy.
It's not as good as Brood Trouble in the Big Easy. That has Jim Lee art, and Stefano Caselli will not complain about me saying, "Hey, you see that Jim Lee art in that one? You see the one they sold T-shirts of that, buddy."
At 480. We have Spider-Man and the X-Men number 4 and 5, featuring
that is also a Brood story.
Venom Brood.
I think we're in about the right spot because here's what I'll say: 474 is Dark X-Men Volume 2, the Steve Fox. I think Dark X-Men Volume 2 is better than this, but I think this is probably like on par with Amazing Nightcrawler or the Sidrian Hunters and the Starjammers in like the first appearance of the Brood there. Like, we're
that's
about
probably fair.
What's Amazing Nightcrawler? That's not the Superior.
That's the Age of X-Man. That's the Age of X-Man.
The Superior Nightcrawler.
The Uncanny Spider-Man.
That's the one. Superior Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, I like. I think I like the X-Men better than the Age of X-Men thing.
I do too. Chris, you said you just read recently the 2099 Omnibus. How do you feel about this between X-Men 99, 2099 AD, where Doom is now running it and they have to do some stuff in city whose name I forget? Haven, I want to say?
Yeah. I put this picture online. It was I don't know if you saw it, Adam, but there's a panel of all in the future. It's like the X-Men and Cyclops is in the middle. And he's got long hair with like a gray stripe, but everyone else looks the same in the pictures. So I was like, at some point in the not too distant future, Cyclops like, this is a good look. I'm going to go.
Yeah. I'm going to grow it all out.
That's all I really remember of that. It does make me want to read the Doom Omnibus, Doom 29 Omnibus. So that's my
Here's the
answer, Zach.
thing. Beyond the Warrenellis of it all, Doom 2099 is supposed to be like a really solid comic.
That's what I hear, yeah.
I'd like to give the edge to 2099 because I always like to give the edge to
Okay.
2099, except for
We
our
always
worst,
do.
except for our worst story on this list.
Look, we are generous and we are cruel, all at the same time.
Yeah, I also
would
think I
say-
would give the edge to Uncanny 154 to 157.
Dave Cockrum's probably better. Yeah, let's put it above Amazing Nightcrawler,
Great.
but below that. Don't tell Anna.
I don't know if Anna's a big fan of Amazing Nightcrawler.
No, Anna ranked Amazing Nightcrawler. We talked about it on the show.
Oh,
You
okay.
can get all of her opinions recorded on tape on this very podcast.
Why are you
Or you
yelling
can
at
go
me?
talk to her. One of the two. I don't know, for dramatic effect. We play characters on this show, Adam.
Why are you Scott to my Gene all of a sudden? What's going on?
guys. Well, we didn't answer though. Do you guys think it's a good idea to genocide the brood?
Oh, geez.
I mean, yeah, a
Well,
little bit. They're from a different dimension of pure evil. The only one of them that is good is a genetic mistake.
Brew is cool, but it also
And I don't even
suggests-
like Brew all that much, to be honest.
Oh, I
Like, he's
like
not
Brew.
doing them a lot of things. Yeah, I know. You and me and Chris Edelman have all differing opinions about this.
Yeah, I would say no.
But they killed some Orcus guys, so they needed to exist, Adam.
I don't know.
The X-Men couldn't kill everybody.
Yeah. They had to be murder men for a little bit.
Hold on. You don't have to give it to the Brood.
All right, so
Revising my previous statement on the Brood.
So Lord of the Brood went in at 479. Now back to X-Men Monday 300, Chris, which is coming out the same day this comes out.
It's out right now.
Can you give us a hint of what people should be looking for when they go?
Yeah. Okay, so Adam, you're in it. Starts with Zach, ends with Adam, but doesn't end. It's not over.
This is exciting.
Yeah,
okay.
Do you want to share your question, Adam? What you kind of talked about?
Well, I wrote a piece recently about the continuity confusion.
I will need to link to that piece when I.
Yes, the continuity confusion of the Phoenix in giant size Dark Phoenix jumping to a Legion shell when the Jean that's there is not Jean Grey, it is the Phoenix. And I used this as an opportunity to kind of just talk about continuity weirdness and why there's like it's both pedantic and fun at the same time.
I'm going to be honest, Adam. When I saw that article, I did read it and I was like, am I going to be mad at my friend Adam? Is he going to have bad opinions here? And then you wrote it and I was like, oh no, this is actually a good nuanced discussion about a lot of things.
Thanks,
that isn't
Zach.
taking like an insane fanboy. I have so many battle scars, Adam. I don't know.
So I just used this as an opportunity because Chris, I knew Chris had 400 coming up
before.
And I said, am I too late to get the question in? Apparently I wasn't. So cool.
Yeah, I said email me. You emailed me, and I made it happen. That's how we do it.
Look at
pay
this.
to play next Monday.
Amazing.
No,
Listen, it works.
We were talking about because this is another reveal that I did ask Tom to give me the full unified field theory for Scott and Jean.
Oh,
why he felt that had to happen.
Yeah,
why did he put that in print? And so we talk about that, and he kind of brought up your thing, and I said, okay, here we go. We're going to ask Adam's question. So it's all one big mega answer, but he does comment on that. So get ready for that.
Okay, cool.
We spent about 25% of it talking about Betsy Braddock because her fans are really passionate about Betsy.
Yep.
We talk about I got over like 100 questions, so I tried to like spread the love around.
Too many.
Yes, but there's a lot of overlap. Most of them with Betsy, but so I try to, I ask about Richter and Shatterstar and Sync and Vulcan and like a grab bag of people. So Tom gives us commentary on those and where those characters are. Talk a bit about the Hellfire Vigil and some teasing for what's coming next. What was the big? There's not a big thing. There's a little bit of news in there. He talks a bit about sales and things like that. So yeah, it's a long interview with Tom. Then there's also a little bonus, which is a kind of behind the design of Storm's Hellfire Vigil look with Arewa and Luciano. Just a couple questions there. And the exclusive is the lettered preview for Hellfire Vigil #1.
Very nice.
Oh, nice.
All right.
So
sounds like a really good addition. Now, Chris, for anyone who is listening to this podcast who doesn't know where to find X-Men Monday or find you, where should they be looking?
So it's at AiPT. I don't know what the URL. It's the URL, AiPTcomics.com. Every Monday. Fun fact, whenever people share the images, we have exclusive images every week, or pages, something, and people share them online, and there's always someone going, what's this? Where's this from? And it's got a watermark that says AiPTcomics.
That's AiPT.
You would think by 300 editions, people would know every Monday where the stuff comes from, but they don't.
Amazing.
But yeah, so you can find it every Monday there, and you can go into the X-Men Monday archives and read all 300 editions and see what Zach was asking about in 2019 and so on.
If you go through, I got bored a lot of times, and I would see that Chris was asking questions, and I would just try and see what I could sneak in there.
Sometimes it's Xavier Files, not Zach.
Sometimes it is the artist formerly known as Xavier Files. Man, that was a while ago. That was a weird time.
Covert Zach.
People ask, man, I remember that. That was. Did I ever ask any questions as Javier Files, which was my special secret name that friend of the show Luke Hare came up with?
I like that.
I think that's something for the listeners to go and try to see and track down.
I'm not. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm not looking it up.
That's really funny.
I'm not going to find it. But no, it's great, Chris. Congratulations on 300 editions of it. I know that doing something for this long is a huge undertaking. So great work.
Thank you. And you guys have always been really friendly and supportive and right there alongside me, my fellow X-Men bad boys. But and you can find me on Twitter, Chris A. Hassan at whatever. And then I'm also on Blue Sky, I think Chris A. Hassan. I don't post a lot. I did post last night because I was working late and I was bored and I had a thought, Betsy Braddock rhymes with haddock. And so I tweeted, X-Men as fish, a thread, #1.
Yes.
Betsy Haddock. And then I said, that's all I got.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good tweet.
And then
that's a good tweet.
And I haven't gotten back, but people have been since replying and giving me like Cod Summers and all kinds of stuff. So it's
Betsy Haddock is a good tweet. I like that.
This is solid.
So that's what you can look for if you want to. If you want more from me when I feel compelled to tweet.
All right, folks can always follow along on social at Adam Rec on Blue Sky and Instagram. And Zach, as we are counting down to our 400th episode, what are we doing next week?
We're talking about Sabretooth, which is great because I read those comics about a month ago because I read our schedule wrong.
I remember.
So we're talking about Sabretooth. Everyone likes Sabretooth, right?
Can I?
X-Men fans love Sabretooth. Yes.
I'm gonna flip it on you before I go. Can I leave? Can I leave? No. I was gonna say, can I interview you for a second? Are you guys excited about 400? And what do you have planned? Can you reveal anything yet?
Oh, well, 1, I'm excited. 2, we have nothing planned. Okay. So
if you go back on the podcast, you'll see for episode 100 we had a script. Episode 200 we had a script. We've had plenty of these episodes where we have been like setting things up in advance, and my life has turned into an exercise in giving property or giving money to the Hilton Hotel Corporation. So I have no plans right now.
Here's what
we are just doing things.
Yeah, here's what I can hint at. We are possibly going to do some re-ranking. And
Ragnarok, it's a cycle, just like the Asgardians.
Yep. And
like it's an Ouroboros or Natty Boros, whatever.
I suspect there might be some listener Q&A. So
all right.
But
thank you for planning that, Adam. That's great.
I'm just spitballing here.
Brian Michael Bendis will not be in attendance because we forgot to invite him.
What was the one that Rob Liefeld was on?
Oh, 100.
Oh, that was 100.
That was 100. Yeah.
Fun fact, I also recorded episode 100 in a hotel room.
Amazing.
With Rob Liefeld?
No, I did pay Rob Liefeld $15. And sometimes I think about that decision. It's like, was that a good decision? And then I think about, actually, in the grand scheme of things, I got a lot more joy than anything else from that $15.
I got a lot of joy from that. That was some.
I remember listening and thinking, how did they get Rob Liefeld? He's a fan of Adam.
What was beautiful about that, what I cracked up, and I think I told Jerry this at New York Comic Con, is that him and Chip Zdarsky pulled the exact same thing on Jonathan Hickman a couple of years later. And I was like, that was why I did that first. We are same brain. Did you? That
is true. I thought that too. Did you see the reaction that Rob had when he talked about that? Where
no, I did not. I do not pay attention to.
No, we try not to pay attention to.
I don't give him $15.
Yeah. He turned it around as he had no idea who these people were, but he's like, I gave great advice either way to this person, to Jonathan. Of course,
that's that ego.
That's beautiful. That ego. There's no way he doesn't know who Jonathan Hickman is. So he's gonna die mad at Jonathan Hickman for things.
Yeah.
Anyways,
well, Chris, thank you again, and. Listeners, tune in next week for some Sabretooth. Zach, you gotta take us out.
Oh yeah. Until then, folks, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survived the experience.
Get it!